The top 10 abandoned places in Florida. 10. Marine Stadium. Outside downtown Miami, on Virginia Key, is where you'll find the Miami Marine Stadium. Hilario Candela, a 28-year-old Cuban immigrant, was given the job of developing the facility in 1962. The city of Miami offered Candela a $1 million budget and instructed him to complete the stadium as cheaply as possible. Candela created a masterpiece of architecture. With a 326-foot span, the concrete canopy was the longest cantilevered concrete structure in the world when it was finished. Numerous prestigious powerboat competitions were held at the stadium. As the city of Miami had little interest in managing the site, the Marine Stadium began to exhibit indications of degradation during its final few years of use. Sadly, the property was shut down in 1992. The stadium needed $3 million in repairs due to poor maintenance from 1964 to 1992, when it was in use. There were several attempts to destroy the abandoned stadium so that a marina and condos could be constructed, but nothing ever came to pass. 9. Dome houses. The Dome House, an igloo-like concrete edifice made up of white dome chambers, was built in 1981 on the southernmost point of Marco Island on Cape Romano. The home was built by Bob Lee in 1980 with the intention of making it totally self-sufficient and environmentally friendly. He started by bringing the required supplies, such as the metal dome forms, 2 concrete mixers, and fresh water to mix the cement. Just 2 years after it was finished, in 1982, Lee and his family sold the Cape Romano Dome House. The island had already begun to change and other nearby residences had been destroyed at that point. The John Tosto family bought it in 2005 with the intention of remodeling it and making it usable once more. The Collier County Code Enforcement Board ordered the buildings to be demolished in 2007 because they were deemed hazardous. He declined, having already put $500,000 into the property, and was penalized $187,000 in 2009. The pillars supporting the house's foundation were submerged permanently at that time. 2 of the westernmost domes collapsed into the ocean after Hurricane Irma hit the area on September 10, 2017, leaving 4 standing. In 2018, the Collier County Code Enforcement Division closed the case on the domes, and ownership was transferred to the state. 8. AeroJet Dade Rocket Facility. At the AeroJet Dade Rocket Facility, they chose to leave their enormous rocket in its current location. The test facility was built in the center of 25,000 acres of land that the AeroJet business bought in the early 1960s to conduct research on different rocket fuels that may be used to launch people into space. During its operational existence, the complex tested 3 distinct rocket types at full burn in 2 underground rocket silos. The Dade testing site was abandoned after the contractor's financing dried up because NASA decided to employ liquid fuel for its human missions, which was devastating for AeroJet. While efforts were made to use the nearby area for farming and reconstruction, nothing ever took off once the silos and buildings were swiftly abandoned. Along with the 2 remaining sheds, the final SL-3 missile was abandoned in its silo and had been erratically covered with steel plates, drawing urban explorers' attention. 7. Lytle Elementary School. This gigantic schoolhouse constructed in 1915 was first named Public School No. 4. But in 1957 it was renamed Lytle Elementary in honor of a past principal. Sadly, the school was only able to use its new name for a short period of time before it was closed and abandoned. Just 100 feet from I-95 and I-10, traffic noise drowned out classrooms on the 2nd level, and the school became difficult to access and remote. Prior to being formally condemned, it served as Duval County's storage facility for a while after permanently closing its doors in 1960. The structure has now been taken over by nature and a fire in 1995 forced a portion of the roof to collapse. 6. Ambassador Hotel. The first affluent apartment complex in downtown Jacksonville, Florida, the 310 West Church Street Apartments was where the Ambassador Hotel initially debuted in 1924. The hotel deteriorated over time as Jacksonville's central business district declined. Sam Easton, a local developer of real estate, bought the Ambassador Hotel in 1970. The hotel was transformed into low-income apartments in the late 1980s, with rooms available for weekly rentals. There were several drug busts and prostitution raids at the Ambassador Hotel. During a crack cocaine bust in 1997, the building received multiple code violations and citations. Police found a covert closed-circuit monitoring system on the 5th floor that was intended to alert residents to approaching law enforcement or drug sales. Along with hundreds of other infractions, code enforcement officers discovered locked fire escape doors, damaged wiring, and fractured walls. The building's owner was given 15 days to undertake the costly renovations necessary to bring it into conformity or risk penalties and potential condemnation. In 1998, the Ambassador Hotel was declared formally condemned. 5. Arthur G. Dozier School for Boys. The Dozier School was opened in 1900 as the Florida State Reform School. It ranged in its quota, enrolling children involved in something as huge as theft and murder to those who were merely being disobedient. The parents sent their children in hopes that they would get better. But what happened inside the school walls was beyond what anyone could have imagined. It was a training ground for a criminal future, despite the authorities' claims that they were giving the youngsters hope for a brighter future. The trauma that was perpetrated upon the students left those who survived with severe emotional damage. According to the charges, they mercilessly beat the students after chaining them to the beds and walls. In addition, they physically punished and tortured the students by using leg shackles. The school was charged with torturing, killing, and even beating students. Even if the students wrote letters to their families, they were forbidden from criticizing the institution since doing so would get them severely assaulted. In addition to the abuse and beatings, the school's infrastructure was in terrible shape. When Florida's governor, Claude Kirk, visited the school in 1968, he found crumbling walls, bucket toilets, holes in the ceiling, and no heat in the winter. He said that parents would go up there with weapons if they realized their children were being held in such conditions. A forensic anthropological investigation was done by University of South Florida researchers. On the grounds of the Dozier School, they discovered 55 graves, and they discovered a record of 98 fatalities in old papers. In 2019, more than 27 burials were found by workmen. Records indicate that 50 other boys perished in the school, but there is no sign of their bodies. After more than a century of savagery, the Dozier School was finally shut down in 2011. 4. Big Bend Jai Alai. A hard ball called a pelota is thrown at over 200 miles per hour off the end of a wicker basket or stick called a cesta in the game of Jai Alai, which originated in the Basque area of Spain. Because it was advertised as the quickest game in the world, it gained popularity in Latin America and the Philippines. In 1978, Big Bend Jai Alai opened close to Quincy, Florida, but it had a difficult start. Stephen Calder, a co-owner, suffered a severe heart attack and passed away just before the opening. His $22 million fortune was contested in several court actions for more than 13 years by his heirs, family members, business partners, and others. In 1988, the Big Bend players went on strike with other athletes over unresolved contract issues. The sport itself was fraught with danger, serious cuts and concussions among players were regular, reports of manipulated games alarmed spectators, and rising organized crime was a result of greater gambling. However, since its peak in the 1980s, Jai Alai has been less popular in Florida, mostly due to changes in state law and the expansion of gambling opportunities. Although there has been talk of reopening Big Bend as a Greyhound track, the frontone doors have stayed closed since the last rock-hard pelota shot out of a cesta 25 years ago. 3. Harder Hall Resort. The first real estate bubble occurred in Florida during the 1920s land boom, which attracted reckless investors from across the nation. It spurred fast city expansion throughout the state, and led to the creation of brand new cities. Under the name Lakewood Terrace, Vincent Hall and Lewis F. Harder developed plans for a sizable hotel and resort village with funding from Biltmore interests. Construction on Harder Hall began in 1925. The building was created in the Spanish colonial revival style by architect William Manley King, whose influence has been seen across Florida. The hotel included an observation tower, 6 stories of guest rooms, and a number of patios and arcades that were lined with tropical vegetation. Over 250 people attended a 6-course meal held to honor the hotel's opening in January 1927. Unfortunately, this was the peak of the hotel's operations since, due to the Great Depression, it was only able to remain open for a short period of time until Vincent Hall and his colleagues' firm collapsed, losing most of their assets. When the owners filed for bankruptcy in 1986, the hotel was formally shuttered. Harder Hall was listed on the National Register of Historic Places in 1990, a short time after the government agency had taken possession of the site. There have been 2 efforts to renovate the historic structure since it was closed. Despite the attempts, the property remains abandoned. 2. River Country. The original water park at Walt Disney World in Orlando, Florida was called River Country. The main attraction in River Country, Bay Cove, had a sand bottom and a special water filtration system that utilized confluent water from nearby Bay Lake, which was walled off to create a lagoon. On August 22, 1980, an 11-year-old boy died after he contracted a rare disease caused by amoeba while swimming in Disney's River Country. The deadly amoeba is found in Florida freshwater lakes and can enter through the nose, attacking the nervous system and brain. 2 years later, a 14-year-old boy drowned after plunging into Bay Cove from the drop at the end of the Whoop and Holler slide. Although a sign was posted, an attorney for the family argued there were no warnings on how deep the water was. During the trial, a Disney lifeguard stated up to 75 people would need assistance after plunging into the lagoon from the slide. The family received a $375,000 settlement. River Country closed at the end of the warm weather season in 2001, with the expectation it would reopen in the spring. In April 2002, the Orlando Sentinel reported that the water park might not open. In 2005, Disney announced that River Country would never reopen. Rather than be demolished, the water park was left abandoned. 1. Discovery Island. The property was renamed Discovery Island to accurately reflect the magnificent biodiversity awaiting tourists. Lemurs and giant tortoises, as well as uncommon bird species like scarlet ibis, flamingos, and cranes, were among the exotic wildlife that called the island home. The surviving animals were transferred to the new Animal Kingdom Resort at Walt Disney World when the exhibit closed in 1999, but the island was merely left to nature. Disney sought to find alternative uses for the property when the island was shut down, including working with the creators of the well-known Myst video game franchise. Sadly, the concept for this envisioned live-action puzzle game was never developed further. The island is now uninhabited and off-limits today. Some daring urban explorers have, however, managed to sneak onto the island and capture images of what's left. Disney has threatened to expel these intrepid travelers from all Disney properties for no other reason than that they step foot on Discovery Island, making the entire kingdom appear somewhat less than magical. Those are the top 10 abandoned places in Florida. Be sure to like for a part 2. Thanks for watching.